the raw information from the eyes travels to the back of the brain where the processing begins. At least 32 specialist areas are involved in vision, analysing different aspects of what we see. For example, there are areas devoted to motion, colour, depth and shape. As well as these specialist visual areas, many other parts of the brain are involved in making sense of what's coming into our eyes, to create objects that we recognise and understand.
It's oblong. It's got lots of legs on it. There's a black thing at the top of it. Don't know what it is.
If I told you that it was a kind of scrubbing brush, and what you refer to as the legs are actually the bristles.
Oh, okay.
The black part at the top is actually just a shadow that's falling from the lighting. It's not actually part of the object itself.
Okay, I can see how that could be a scrubbing brush.
Okay.
But I didn't get it.
Uh-huh.
Kevin Chappell has eyes that work perfectly well, but parts of his brain involved in processing the information from his eyes were damaged in a car accident. So although his eyes see everything, his brain can make no sense of it all.
If I have to, then I'll make an effort to figure out what it is. For example, you know, the upper part of what I'm seeing is blue, therefore probably sky. The green is obviously, if it's sticking up, it creates the skyline. It's there are trees. If it's flat, it's you know, grass. That's how I make my sort of judgments about where I am. Many times I'm wrong.
The information from his eyes travels to the back of the brain, where the separate visual areas get to work, analysing things like shape and colour. But that's as far as Kevin gets. All he's left with is a meaningless jumble of details.
The eyes are working just fine and can take in the light from the visual world in a perfectly normal fashion. The problem is an inability for the information from the visual world that's coming into his brain to make contact with this knowledge that he has about objects.
So what he sees with his eyes never comes together in his head as recognisable objects.
It's kind of a plate with writing on it.
But he can still use his other senses to work out what things are.
Feels like an old M45.
The damage to Kevin's brain was extensive, and his condition is unique. So for now, no one knows where in amongst all the areas involved in vision, the vital step of recognising the objects we're looking at takes place. Just like baboons, recognising and reading faces is a fundamental part of our lives. And faces are so important to us that in our brain we each have an area which is entirely devoted to seeing nothing else but faces. The precise spot varies from person to person, but it's usually in the right-hand hemisphere, in the lobe stretching back from the temple. Years ago, Lincoln Holmes was in a car accident which damaged precisely this area of his brain, leaving him completely face blind.
On those moments when I am suddenly alone and I don't know where anybody that I'm with is, there can be a surge of fear, and it's lonely in that sense. One of the things that makes it hard for people to believe that I have such a deficit is that I'm not blind. I see them. And it's very hard for folks to understand that I can see them and not know who they are.
Sometimes it seems like maybe he recognizes me because I'm in the right place at the right time. I've said we're going to meet at such and such a location, and he finds me and he says, "Hi, Holly." But I think it's because we've made pre-arrangements that, yes, we're going to meet at X place at X time.
What's that?
That's a key.
Great.
That's an apple.
Okay. Who is it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Young woman, old woman?
To be very honest, I'm having trouble answering that question.
Well, let me give you some biographical details. She's a movie star from the 1950s, very glamorous. She sang Happy Birthday to President Kennedy once.
Marilyn Monroe?
Yes.
When I'm asked by people sometimes, do faces just all look the same? The answer to that question is that no, they don't all look the same. None of them look like anyone. They all are faces, but they are not recognizable as anyone's face. Any of them.
Lincoln can see all the individual features of a face perfectly well. The mouth, the eyes, the nose. But the brain area that combines these details into a face just isn't working. So he can't recognize anyone, even himself.
Okay. How about that person?
Don't know.
Any sense of familiarity?
This is the nastiest one of all, isn't it?
Yes.
This is me.
Yes. How do you feel looking at a picture of your own face and not recognizing it?
For me, it is a face. It's not my face. It's a face. And there is some sense of incompleteness there. But so be it.
Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay.
Yeah, absolutely right. Good,
Albert Einstein.
good.
I really don't know what the colored squares. There are from faces in the squares. I can see 7 faces.
What about in the parts where there aren't faces?
There were just red blotches and black blotches. Oh, they could be playing cards. The blotches is like.
So it's interesting that you were so rapidly able to pick up the faces,
Right.
but the suits somehow didn't quite make sense to you.
From studying people like Kevin and Lincoln, we now know that the part of our brain which deals with faces is completely separate from the general object recognition system. That's how important faces are to us as a species.